Eyes are really dry. What? Work. All right. So good morning. We ready to go to work? Let's do that. Oh, we got some people coming in first, so let's just wait just a minute while they get settled, and then we'll start. So go ahead and put everything on the side of your chair there, a chair next to you. And actually, while they're coming in, I'm going to hand these out. Did anyone miss last week? Okay, I'll get you. Thank you so much. I'll get you class 4 from last week. There you go. Welcome to all of our love streamers. Hi to my sister Jill. Hi, Jill. She's on there right now. There you go. There you go. Thank you. Thanks, Velma. I want to thank some of you that sent me thank you notes this week. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, everybody in? Good morning. Come on in. Come on in. Okay, let's get started. Let's close our eyes. Take a deep breath in. Okay. I hit every stoplight on the way here today. Every single one from Palm Springs. Every single one. So I'm going to take this moment, and maybe you can join me in allowing the process of getting here to be released and to let go of it and to just simply become conscious in this moment of what stands before us. This beautiful opportunity to grow, to expand, to forgive, to give and receive, to be in gratitude in ways that we've never been before, to march into something new that's going to, when explored and experimented with, will change our entire life. And so we just say thank you, beloved presence, for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you for all those who had their hand in participating in today's class, all of the staff and the volunteers, and just thank you for this beautiful building and the ability that we have to meet here safely and to know that we are in our right place right here and right now. Knowing that something wonderful is about to happen, we simply let it unfold, and it does so with grace and ease. For this and so much more, we give great thanks. We let it be so, and together we say, and so it is. Amen. All right, we're going to do just one quick partnering, which is grab a partner. And what came up for you this week? What has been most valuable in this class? What have you been looking at, and what do you think you've gained the most up till now? Okay, grab a partner. Someone you haven't worked with, preferably, or someone new. All right, let's take another minute to wrap up. Steve, it's happening. Okay, thank your partner. You can head back to your seats now. All right, as a group, let's talk about some of the things that you've experienced over the past few weeks. We're on week 5. So what were some of the highlights of the things you learned in this class? Yes, hang on. I'm going to run the microphone today. There you go, Marie.
Thanks. Hi, Jill.
Oh, wait a minute. I don't have it on, I think. Try again. Now tell her.
Thank you. Hi, Jill. It's Jean Marie from Bali, one of the twins. One of the things I learned, this class came at the perfect time because I think we shared with you, Judy's daughter has come in to live with her and now wants to live with me. And so I just needed this class like my sister needs it. And as I was telling my partner, I'm letting go of the past. And that's such a challenge to let go of the past and all the negative things and to forgive, which I always thought I was great at, finding out I'm not. So forgive, there's my son is here. Noah's laugh. And having an open heart to move forward. Those are all very challenged, but this class is right on top of it, and it's just what I needed.
Good.
And thank you, Dr. Joe.
You're welcome. So we're going to do I just found this supplement, and Julie's going to photocopy it for us. We're going to have it in a few minutes, about the forgiveness thing, because there is one component that we talk about, forgive and forget. We never forget. We never forget. But there can be such a thing as forgive and let it be. Forgive and just let it be. You know, instead of forgiving and then also forgiving and losing. Have you ever got lost in a project where you get so involved, you say, you know, I just was so involved with what was going on, I just lost my way, I just didn't even know, I was just totally focused on. Anybody ever do that? You know what I'm talking about? You just sort of lose yourself in doing something. You have to lose yourself in the process of forgiveness. You have to lose yourself so much so that what's happening on the outside with that person or that situation, no longer, you don't even see it anymore. So you have to lose yourself into forgiveness. Does that make sense? And understand you're not going to forgive and forget, but you're going to forgive and let it be. That doesn't mean anybody's right, anybody's wrong. It doesn't go through the whole list of things that we've talked about before. But it certainly allows you the ability to just be fully present now and not carry all those things with you. It's a challenge. All right, anybody else? What else did you learn? We've had thank you notes, we've had gratitude, Judy, and then I'll head over here.
I have to second what my sister said about forgiveness. I realize I have worked on it for years, and I thought I did it, and I haven't, but I'm working on it. But what helps me most is dealing with gratitude. And this class and the readings have really made me focus on gratitude, and I really think that's the answer,
Right.
is gratitude.
Yeah, because you can't hold the anger, so you have to look at your life and be grateful for what you have. Hi. Marlene.
I just want to say 2 things that happened. Number 1, I now set an intention every day. I don't do a laundry list, but I choose 1 or 2 things that I can honestly do that I can make myself in this world a better place. So I consciously think about that, ponder over it every morning. The second thing about forgiveness, my brother came into town last week, and he hasn't been talking to me for months, and we're the only 2 left out of a family of 7. And he and his partner have had a laundry list of hurts and disappointments that I moved back to California. But I spoke to somebody from the church here, and she told me to just open my heart with compassion when I go meet them. And I'll tell you, I met with them Thursday, and I just, yeah, they were drinking, they were doing their thing, but Marlene was coming from nothing but compassion for both of them. And we had the most wonderful healing night. And I called my brother the next day, and I will stay in touch with him. And it really doesn't matter what happened, you know, whether they still hold on to that or whatever, but I know my heart's been softened.
Wow.
Yeah.
We love hearing stuff like that. You know, and would that have happened had you not had the class? No. See, that's the difference. So I asked myself the question that, and this is what people float in and out of classes, and they float in and out of Sundays, right? And so I ask you, would this have happened? Would you have had these changes if you didn't have our center, if you didn't have a class to go to like this? So I think it's important that people recognize, like this is where we get these spiritual tools to deal with life's issues and life's things that happen in life. This is a great place to do that. So I want people to recognize that this is the place that happens, and these are the classes that they happen in. And so when we offer them, it's easy on Sunday because we have so many announcements, and there's this class offered, and this class offered, and this class, and you know what? You know what? Jump in one of them. Just stay in, because that class is a spiritual practice. Class in itself, coming here every week, is a spiritual practice. It forces you to take 2-3 hours of your week, and talk about self-care. We're going to talk about self-care coming up because that was one of our journal entries this week. Thank you, Julie. This is one of the biggest self-care things you can give yourself, is this class or taking classes, because it takes care of you for a few hours. You think you're coming to learn. This is self-care. Does that make sense? All right, Marlene, you had a follow-up real quick? Hang on.
I had a horrendous experience this summer. I've never had any dental problems, but I had a crown, and then all of a sudden the next tooth went haywire. But I came in, and I had lost weight. I wasn't sleeping well. I came in for the 3-minute prayer, or the miracle prayer, rather. And one of the prayer practitioners prayed for me, and I thought, okay. Walked out. I never had another pain.
Yeah. Done unto you as you believe, and those things work. Here we go. Yes, Avina.
I'm not alone, and I'm not so different than everybody else, and that's a wonderful thing, because growing up, when I was little, I thought I was just totally alone. I mean,
Right.
I wasn't close to my family or my sister or anybody. I just was a wild child.
Yeah, and you're not alone. Look around. And then the spiritual community that you have all the time, you can actually depend on them. I mean, when you see them on Sundays now, when you come into the room, you're going to see familiar faces, and you will have shared with them at some point in time during the class and got to know them. And because of that, you're going to have a connection. This is how Laura and I got involved in the center. We just happened to be in class together. That was it. And then it grew into, something 20 years later. So, I mean, this is where things like that start. This is where, when people are saying, I'm lonely, I want to meet people who believe what I believe and think the way I think, or at least are on the same pathway, so I can share with them, because some people in my life are not on that pathway, so I get at least have an opportunity to have that time together. This is where you meet them. All right, somebody else. Yes, Ronald, hang on.
What I really got out of the class was the gratitude thing. I was just telling Jody, I do this list every morning. It's like a gratitude list. It's like 200 things, and I read it over all the time, every morning. And we were talking about, in the back, it had some things. What are you grateful for? And I said, well, this is pretty easy. I just go through my little list. But what happened is, when I wrote it down, the process of writing changes things. Something happens, whereas I read the list every morning, but when you write the list, it's a whole new dynamic. And what I love coming to the center for is, I always believe that the collective force is far more powerful than individual force. So when I'm at the center, all of this stuff is really just like connected. Then I get outside my car, and I'm doing the crawl along on the 111, and I'm just going, okay, it's all gone now.
Where do I got to get that back? All right, anybody else on this side before I move? Anybody here? Anybody over here? Yes,
just one of the many things I love about these classes is it always teaches you something you need to know for yourself. And what I learned in this class, among other things, was that I'm responsible for being the guardian of my consciousness, how I want the way I want things to be at the heart level.
Good.
And to that end, I'm responsible to always keep up my daily spiritual practices because it keeps me centered and aligned with all the things that I know are true, which is we're one with God.
Yeah. And when you fall off that wagon, you can tell. It feels like you fell off a wagon.
It's never the same.
Right. Exactly. Anybody else over here? Okay.
Yes, I didn't come last week. I had other things going on, but you kind of miss things when you don't show up. And but I did keep reading this stuff and kept reading. But while I was reading, and I was reading the asking for things. And I thought, oh my God, I read off that list. I couldn't think of anything I've asked for. And now this morning, Judy said asking for directions, right? Information. I never do that. And then that somebody talking about gratitude, that's asking, right? And I don't think I do that much. I don't do that much.
Well,
So,
we're going to talk about asking a lot today.
oh, good.
So today we're going to dive into the asking part. No, yeah, I get it. Yeah, we're going to talk. That's going to be the first thing out of the gate. All right? Any last one? Any last comments? So overall, the class has been pretty helpful then, yeah? Yes. Okay. Where did my remote go? Nothing is ever lost. Okay, wait a minute. Seriously? Oh, here it is. Oh, before we go off that, I want to move into, let's see. Let's take this thing that the handout that just came to you. I strongly recommend that you take advantage and read this through thoroughly. And don't read it through just once. This is something, Edward, my friend Edward wrote this, and it's brilliant, right? Why do we need to forgive and how to do it? How is it possible to really forgive and forget? He really has some great points here. We could go into depth on this, and if we have time at the end of class, we will. But this particular 3-page worksheet is, I'll get it to her, is invaluable. So we're going to go through this if we have time at the end of class. If those who want to stick around for a little forgiveness work, we can work on that together, all right? So if not, if you have to run out, then make sure you read this at some point and look at that. All right, so let's close our eyes for just a moment and listen to what I'm going to read to you. It is a sign of healthy self-esteem to nurture your needs and wants. We always take good care of the things we value the most in life. But with all of our adult responsibilities and duties, we sometimes forget to take care of our own needs. We forget that we need time away from our busy schedules just to be. If you truly want to live a prosperous life, you have to take care of yourself. Don't wait until you find time because you never will. You must take time. Don't wait until all your bills are paid before you invest in your own well-being because that day may never come. When you are stressed out, you don't make good decisions. When you are tired, you don't think well. When you are so busy caring for others, not taking enough time to care for yourself, you will eventually become angry and resentful. You can get away for a vacation, at least take yourself to lunch, get a massage, buy yourself a new outfit, go on a retreat. Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself like someone you love. Investing in your own spiritual well-being is the greatest investment you can make. So in order to invest in your own well-being, did I jump ahead? Yeah, we're going to come back to forgiveness. In order to invest in your own well-being, let's ask this question first. How comfortable are you with asking for help? Who's comfortable asking for help? Who here is challenged by asking for help? Now, let me ask you a question about the asking for help thing. It appears to me, and I'm going to generalize here, so just know that this is not a study. It appears to me that there are some people who don't want to ask for help at a certain age because they don't want to be perceived as being needy or being vulnerable to being taken over. Does that make sense? That by asking for help at a certain point, you think it's a sign of weakness instead of a sign of strength. The ability to ask for help and ask for things in your life is actually an ability of strength. You're not coming from weakness. It's the exact opposite. You know how we say receive and then I'll give, right? And give and receive, how we switch that around? Sometimes we look at asking as it's a sign of weakness, not a sign of strength. Now, we do know people who ask all the time, right? There are people that just ask and ask and ask and ask. But in this class, you've learned the value of giving and receiving. So when you're asking, you also know that you've been giving. That part of your spiritual practice, part of your spiritual prototype now is to be giving to other things. So asking would be appropriate. Does that make sense? So how comfortable are you with asking? If I were to say on a scale of 1 to 10, pick a number. Let's pick a number. All right. And with 10 being, I am so comfortable, I ask for anything and everything I want, and it doesn't affect me whatsoever. All right? 1 being, I feel like I'm on my own. I want to be on my own because I don't want anybody I don't need anybody to depend on, and I just don't ask for anything because that would be a sign of weakness for me. Does that make sense? So pick your number, all right? So give me for those people who are 1 to 3, in other words, I can barely ask, I barely feel comfortable. Interesting, all right? How about 4 to 7? People kind of in the middle? A lot of people, okay. 8 to 10, you're really comfortable with it, you have no problem with it. Okay, good. It's a different split, isn't it? It's almost like the 1 to 3s are equals to the 8s to 10s, right? And then we have our biggest group in the middle. Demographically, you fall into perfect categories, right? So let's talk about this. Comment on the statement, I make sure that my needs are met. I make sure my needs are met. Just any comments on that? When you hear that, what does that mean to you? I make sure my needs are met. As the crickets came to life.
To me, that's about drawing appropriate boundaries. I mean, I used to feel like I didn't have a right to take care of my own needs before the needs of people that depended on me, and as a result, I became so depleted that I was useless to them. And so in the name of being, the helper, I became useless.
Okay.
So now I know that I have to, take care of all of my needs, and that's a responsible thing to do. It's not a selfish thing to do. It's part of being a responsible person and having the resources to be of help to other people.
Okay. So when you hear I make sure that my needs are met, you start automatically thinking of other people making sure their needs are met. So I just want to make because when you just shared, no, this is common. No, it's actually perfect that you did that. You're actually a good case study here. That when we say, I make sure my needs are met, usually my needs are met after I've met everyone else's needs. It's like I make sure everyone else is all set up, Trey's okay, Carly's okay, everybody's okay. And then as soon as I know that everybody's okay, then I go, okay, now it's my turn. And I fall into, usually 6th or 7th after my work and other things. I don't rate myself up there at number 1. I rate myself kind of, low on the priority list. So I know exactly how you feel, Eric, because when I hear I make sure my needs are met, of course I do. But before I do, I have to make sure everybody else is met. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, it sounds selfish, but it's talking about self-care and allowing yourself to take care of yourself because you can't be that vital, caring person when your tank is running low. And a lot of us, myself included, I will run beyond empty. When your gas light comes on and you think, okay, it's time to pull over. No, I'll push it to 48 miles, even because it says I have 50. I'll go 48, right? I mean, I'll pull in on fumes in my own personal life before I take care of myself. I'll be on fumes. So this is something that I'm working on as well. And Eric, you brought it up. When we hear these stuff, we immediately think of other people. But there has to be, like the give and receive and give, the forgiveness part, there has to be paradigm shifts. We have to start shifting that way and saying, okay, wait, I got to make sure I pop up on the priority list. Does that make sense? All right, anyone else? Comment on, I make sure my needs are met, because there's another component that goes into that. Mark.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of difference, isn't there, between needs and wants?
Exactly. If you always say my needs are met, and I'm gonna give this to you, Ronald, but then I'll get it. Hang on. When people say, I want my needs met, that's a form of a prayer. Understand, that's a prayer. Do you want your needs met, or do you want your desires met? Because those are two different things. I need to pay my mortgage. I need to put gas in my car. I need to put food on the table. I want a vacation. I want to be able to do things and go things and experience things, right? I want to have enough money in my bank account so I feel financially secure. It's not what I need, because I'm not needing it. I want it. So Mark brought up a really good point. You have to make sure when you say, I make sure my needs are met, that's actually not a really good thing to follow. I make sure all of my desires are fulfilled. Do you see the difference? Because that way, you're not limiting it to just your rent or your mortgage payment or your getting by to the end of the month or just paying off a credit card or a dental bill or whatever that is, whatever pops up. And it's also not needing in a relationship. Let's talk about how needs are met in relationships. Do you want the minimum need in a relationship, or do you want a relationship that feels fulfilling and open and wonderful? You know what I'm saying? It's not just a necessity thing. It is something that adds to your universe. So it applies on every level. It applies on your finances. It applies on your relationships. Do you want your health needs to be met? Or would you like to go beyond what you need and become bigger than that? Not bigger physically, but become bigger than that. Become healthier than what you thought you could be. And not just do the mile, but do a mile and a half or 2 miles. Or, not just do once a week in the pool with the water aerobics, but to do 3 days a week, something like that, where you go beyond just the minimum threshold. Ronald, what did you come up with?
Well, what I came up with, what helped me out with that years ago, was some first responders. And they would say, well, we were with this team, and they said, well, you're going to go get these guys in this smoke-filled room. And everybody took off, and the first responders said, you have to be geared up first. You have to take care of you first, because if you fall, then the people die from smoke inhalation, and you do too. So always make sure you're strong enough to take care of the others.
Yeah, that's like when a lifeguard is rescuing someone, you notice how they position themselves so that the person they're rescuing can't drown them. When a lifeguard is rescuing someone, they position themselves around the person who's drowning in a certain way so that the person they're rescuing can't drown them. That's why they always come from behind, because the person can't, panic and push them down into the water. So it makes sense for us to do kind of the same thing. We have to make sure that we're not putting ourselves out there to get drowned. Does that make sense? To drown. So and there are some relationships that you can all think of that you're probably inventorying right now, where maybe you should have come from behind. Let's just say that, right? You should have come from behind and made sure that you weren't going to be impacted by it. You weren't going to drown in that situation. Does that make sense? All right. So take care of yourself, taking care of me. Next one. Here we go. Close your eyes and I'll read this one. When you were a child, you sat at the dinner table waiting for someone to serve your meal. But now you're an adult, you most likely have to get up and get it yourself. You were designed by your Creator to be a partner in the creative process, not a passive recipient. You've been given everything you need to live a prosperous life. You are permanently connected to the infinite mind of God, which is endlessly passing new ideas, ideas that can create greater freedom, ease, and prosperity through your mind. You are surrounded and immersed in God's powerful presence, which is waiting on your commitment and faith to bring into fruition every good idea you have. The nature and tendency of life is always toward greater living. There is nothing in the universe against you. You cannot fail when you are in pursuit of abundance because you are partnering with the greatest power in the universe. This power can overcome every obstacle. It is not limited by any economic or political situation or past experience. All it knows is perfect abundance. What are you waiting for? Take one step toward the best idea in your mind. Move toward the thing you desire most in life. Take action. Move forward. Get up and go. Don't wait any longer. All right, so where in your life do you think you may be holding back? When I say get up and go and you're like, not yet. Not ready yet. Not ready yet. I'm not ready to commit to that yet. I know I have to, right? I know I have to, but I'm just, so what, where in your life do you think you may be holding back? Come on. Throw it out there. You're safe in this room. No one's going to talk about you behind your back.
I'm holding back on a relationship. I've been approached 3 or 4 different times in the last 3.5 years, and I'm not responding. I believe I judge when I see someone that I've just briefly met, and if they're pretty much out there on substance, or they're dressed different, and I just, I don't respond back.
Okay, so you're holding back on relationships.
I am.
Are you holding back on relationships, or have you made a decision that you don't want to be in one?
I'm holding back on relationships. I have not made a decision that I don't want to be in one.
Okay, make sure that because sometimes people hold back on relationships and they stand in judgment, and because part of them needs to redefine the type of relationship they need to be in. So they hold back because they're not sure what a relation, put it this way. There's the old paradigm of relationships. You know, the whole courting thing and going out, and the paradigm has changed, it's shifted. So many times people hold back going into relationship because they think they have to go into the old paradigm of a relationship. In other words, they have to go into you're my steady, I got a chain around my neck or on my ankle, or I have to give up half of my closet and all those things. So many people don't go into relationships. They hold back from relationships because they're afraid of the way it's going to take form, and they're not going to like the form. So instead of holding back on a relationship, maybe the prayer would be for clarity around relationships, and then a receptivity for a relationship that matches what you've cleared up in your consciousness as what the relationship should look like.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because when we're holding back, people hold back because they don't have clarity, or they hold back because of a past hurt or injury. That's what holds people back. So they're afraid to go in because they're not sure what they're going into. But if you do your prayer work properly, if you learn how to pray and you do your meditations and you do your written work, you will bring into your life the form that your relationship should take place around. Not necessarily concrete, but be flexible. But do you understand what I'm saying? So it has nothing to do with the other person, actually, or their appearance or anything. It has to do with how they're going to fit in and if they're going to fit in. But you have to have clarity in your paradigm. You have to have clarity in the formation and what it is that you want. Did you want?
Just to repeat, people hold back for two reasons, because they don't have clarity and
History.
a history.
They hold back because they have a history where they've been hurt. Because I'm hurt and have been hurt, I'm not going to do that. It's like the example that I used a couple weeks ago. Someone lost their husband, and their husband hated cats, and this woman always wanted to have a cat, right? So when he died, we all thought, okay, now she can get a cat. But she's like, no, because the cat will die too. So every day she withdrew the ability to love that cat and the cat to receive its love, right, and give back. She withdrew that because of what could happen, later on when that cat dies. So her fear of death from the cat kept her from a daily experience of experiencing love, so she stayed in the loss of something. Okay? You stay in the loss of it versus what am I missing? All the stuff that you missed today. The pain of losing an animal is the same as losing, anything of great importance. It's devastating. I've lost several. It's just, your heart hurts. But does that mean you shouldn't have them? You shouldn't have that kind of love because you have to weigh the amount of love those animals give us in return to the grieving process of having lost something. So it's the balance. It's the history and it's the mystery. History and mystery are the two things that keep us from moving forward. Write that in my book. History and mystery. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody else want to share what they think is holding them back? Yolanda, coming.
Are you coming to me?
All right, I'm coming to you, baby.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a published author. I've finished a book. I have a contract sitting on my desk, and I'm on pause with it because my agent wants to pause and do one other thing before we submit on this contract. And I know all the things I have to do. You have to really exert a tremendous amount of effort, 5 acts of whatever, every single day towards the goal. And I'm just kind of taking it easy until I have a pub date. And then when I have a pub date, I'll work like crazy to a deadline because I'm a deadline person. So I need to get myself moving so that I can start doing, more speaking and get out there, and in anticipation of, whenever that pub date is,
Sure.
maybe a year from now.
Well, see, I feel the same way. I deal with that. People are always saying, when are you going to write a book? You're like, well, I could write a book, but if I write a book, then I have to promote the book. And I have to go on the road. And I have to take what would be my time off to take care of myself. Now I've just added another layer of responsibility to my life, right? Because when you print a book, you have to pay for the book. So what's going to pay for the book is the selling of the book. So now I got to go out and push the book. And I don't know if I want to be a book pusher. I think I want to lay on the beach for about a year. So I feel your pain, Yolanda, because you're like, okay, it will kick you, but you'll kick on drive. You'll go into drive when you get your publishing date. But see, I'm in the same light. That's what holds me back, is I want to actually start taking care of me for a while. Nettie.
Well, I have a question about that because there's history, there's clarity, which I think is a good point. But I think we're talking a little bit about fear of success maybe too in there. At least I think that might be part of it for me, because I've been asked to write books, I've been asked to do some paintings, to do some teaching, and I've got the clarity on all of it, but I think I want to go lay on a beach too.
Okay, but fear of success. What does that mean? What does that mean when you say fear of success? What does that mean to you?
Well,
If you were successful, so just wait a minute. Let me walk you to a place, okay? So if you were to close your eyes for a minute and then just say, okay, if I were to be successful in writing my book and doing this, this is what my life would look like. Take a snapshot of what that looks like and see yourself in it, and now tell me what would be a bad part about that snapshot.
The responsibility.
Okay? So you know. The responsibility of what?
Well, the kind of thing that you're talking about is like, okay, now, what does this mean will be expected of
Right, what's expected of me, what do I have to do to sustain? Yep. Travel, airports, hotels, flight delays, weather. Oh my God, it makes me want to vomit just thinking about it. It does. It makes me just nauseous just thinking about all those things. But you know what? But maybe I should be doing something. So anyway, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. But so you think, okay, is this really what I want to do? Okay. Okay, go ahead. Ellen.
While everybody was sharing, a couple thoughts were going through my mind. One thing is, I heard years ago that if we're not ready to make a decision, you're at a yellow light. You're not stop and go. But the second thing is, let me get my thoughts now. Prosperity. It talked about prosperity today, this week, and quality of life. And I really thought a lot about that because there's a lot of things I could do, but it'll interfere with my quality of life right now.
Right.
And that's...
So let's bring it, those are 2 good points. So let's talk about the 2 points. I like the yellow light idea, but keep in mind, yellow lights don't say yellow all the time. They either go to red or they go to green. The problem is a lot of us will stay in yellow far too long. Does that, you know what I'm saying? So you're standing in the middle of an intersection and you're just not making the move. So eventually you have to go to red or green. Yes, I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. Because hanging out in yellow can be exhausting. Yellow is exhausting. The yellow light thinking is tiresome because you just can't make a decision. You wake up with it, you sleep with it, it goes through your head all day long, and it becomes overwhelming. Well, yeah, then that's something is exactly what we were sharing. That clarity comes from that. So when you feel yourself in yellow, that's the time to actually engage other spiritual practices. That's when you engage prayer and ask for the answer, ask for the clarity. You can, people are like, I have no idea what to pray for. Good, then pray for clarity because you don't have it. Does that make sense? If you don't know what to pray for clarity. And then what will manifest? Clarity. And then you'll know what to pray for after that one. You don't just pray once and get out of the game. Your prayer leads to another prayer, leads to another prayer, leads to another prayer. You're praying without ceasing. In other words, our human desires are always alive, and the idea that the universe wants to expand by means of us is always very much alive. So it's never just the answer to a prayer, because that answer to a prayer becomes in and of itself the cause for the next effect. What you think is an effect is really an effect, but it then rolls into cause for the next thing. Does that make sense? So you're never really, the answer to the prayer is always an effect, right? The cause becomes an effect, but that effect now becomes the cause for the next effect. So don't just think you can go part of the way, because you're going to continue to walk through life with a series of cause and effects and seeds and plants and seeds and plants. And every plant will drop stuff that becomes a seed again to something else. That's the way it works. Does that make sense? Okay, what impact does the act of holding back have on a person? When you hold back, what happens to you? Stifled? Anything else? I'm sorry, anxiety? Mom? Anxiety, confusion? What? What's that? You're restricting yourself to something that could be really good, right? What else happens? Distorts perception. Yes. Yes. Blows things out of proportion. This is where things become magnified. One of the impacts of holding back is you begin to justify your position and magnify the downsides to justify your hold. Whether they're real or not, you're like, no, I can't make that decision right now because there's just too much, and then it becomes bigger and bigger. It's kind of like the boogeyman. It's not real, but it takes on an energy of itself. So when you hold back and you're not putting your life in drive and taking care of yourself in all these different ways, that's what happens. Don't wait. Don't wait. Just make the jump. If there's something you want to do in your life, take the jump so that you can begin to experience it. Or don't and find something else. But don't not take the jump and then not find something else, because let's talk about the psychological pattern of hold. There is a psychological and a metaphysical manifestation for holding. When we hold, we're like, I'm not ready to make a decision yet. If you make a decision to stop and not do something, remember, you better fill that with the thing you do want. All right? You're right there. Got it? If you don't fill that void with something immediately that you do want, what fills the void? Worry, what you don't want. Also, what resentment? How about the past? Because our past in our subconscious, in the subjective mind, what isn't consciously placed in mind, the subconscious places it for you. So when you decide to take something out of your life, make sure you're praying simultaneously for the thing to put in. Which is why when we pray, we don't pray anything out. What do we pray? The right stuff in. Because if you pray out, you're not looking at the right thing in. You don't need sickness to leave, you need health to come in. Sickness leaves because it's contrary to health. You don't pray the lack of away, you pray prosperity and abundance in. The lack takes care of itself when the prosperity and abundance comes in. You don't pray away a relationship. You pray the right relationship in. When you put the right relationship in, the relationships that don't conform with what you think is right, they begin to fall apart and leave. Now, the key is not to follow them. Because guilt will make you follow the ones that are falling apart. You'll find yourself feeling guilty and going, oh my God, I can't do this. It's too hard to let this person go. Well, okay, then don't pray right relationships in because you just took a wrong one and put it in its place. You can't let the wrong one go. If you can't let the wrong one go, how's the right one going to get in? And it applies on every single level. Not just friendships, but there are people, there are family members, there are friends, there are colleagues, it applies on every level. The moment you accept a bad relationship, you've told the universe, this is acceptable to me. So the universe says, you shall have it, and you shall have it abundantly, and so it is, amen. You shall have whatever it is that you've accepted. So whenever you take something out, in other words, an idea that you say, I'm not going to follow through on, you better make sure you know what you're putting in its place. So when you go from yellow to black, or yellow to red, and you say, I'm not going to do this, make sure you know what you want your next green to be. Make sure you know what direction you want to go next. Because if you don't, you're just going to repeat the same process. Does that make sense? Are we good? All right. Here we go. Quality of life. This is where we're going to talk about quality of life. Dr. Paul Ray, author of The Cultural Creatives, was recently asked how we can live prosperously and still honor the lives of all 6 billion people on our planet. Can the world sustain all those people living prosperously? His response was, yes, as long as we expand our definition of prosperity. Prosperity is more than having lots of money. In fact, having more money may not create greater prosperity for your life. Living an abundant life isn't about having lots of stuff. It's really about having lots of freedom. It's not about quantity of goods, it's about quality of life. Accepting more job responsibility and a pay raise does not always guarantee a more prosperous life. Having more freedom to do as you please may be the higher choice. Spending more time with loved ones may mean more to you than making a larger salary or advancing up a corporate ladder. When you're faced with choices about your career, ask a few simple questions. Will this increase my prosperity? Will it give me more freedom? Will it improve the quality of my life? Will it make me happier or less stressed? How will it affect the people I care about the most? You define what prosperity is for you. No one else can define it for you. Don't compare your life to others. There are people living very prosperous lives at all levels of income. In the end, it's never about money. It's about freedom and love. So when you hear those words and you look back at the past 4 weeks, how has this class shifted that consciousness around you, that definition of prosperity? How has this class shifted your definition of prosperity?
It's shifted my feelings. Instead of having fearful thoughts about my financial situation, I'm realizing that prosperity and abundance, it gives you freedom, and you want the freedom and the peace that comes with freedom. And don't stay in that stupid place of limits with financial. Freedom and peace is abundance, and that's the abundant life we all want.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that. You've heard me talk about this before, but this is where this comes up. Everything has a coin attached to this. This idea that you can have everything, I don't really believe that. We were just talking about going out and having a book, right? If I wanted to have a book, right, I'm going to sacrifice a coin called being at home, right? Time with my family, time at the center. That coin, I have to be willing to spend that coin to get this other coin. And it's okay if I did. I get to decide that. But what you have to decide is, in my personal life, in my quality of life, is it going to make the quality of my life better? Or if I didn't do that, would I be just as happy having the freedom of time and other things? It's freedom. You hit that right on the nail right on the head. Prosperity isn't about money. It has money as it's one of its components, but prosperity is freedom. You know, it's interesting. Trey and I were having this discussion the other day about, wouldn't it be nice, you know, we go to these things where these people have silent auctions, and I've always wanted to be one of those people that goes to a silent auction, and they'll spend $10,000 on some, you know, silly week in Maui, right? And they have no qualms about, you know, in the auction going, $10,000. I could never raise my hand past about 500, right? My comfort level for that would be just about 500, maybe 1,000, would never go to 10. I certainly can't go to 10. But I was talking to him, I said, why can't we someday be in a position when we can do that? Because that's freedom. That's freedom, the freedom to give it away. Because it has nothing to do with the week in Maui. Hell, most of the time we don't even use them when we buy them, right? It's about contributing to something that means something to you in a cause and being able to do it and just write a check, and a nice check. And it's not for recognition, it's just because you can. So to me, that's part of the prosperity, is the freedom to be able to do the things you want to do, not that you need to do. Does that make sense? Anyone else want to shift how you've looked at this class in terms of prosperity? How about prosperity and gratitude too? If someone wants to lift that one here, let me get that. You mind? Thank you.
Because we'd been talking about those 5 components of where we were, and I know that I lacked the receiving and the asking, and I know that I cleaned both of those up to be equal of the spoke. And you talked about the garden hose, that if you try to stop it, you're stopping it for the whole thing. So it's silly to have, they should all be equal.
Right.
All the time.
Good. So you learned about how the wheel moves.
And that is freedom, and that is present.
Yeah, that's freedom. That's everything. So learning how the whole wheel moves. That if part of the wheel is flat, the wheel stops moving. So all the things that we've been learning in class, when one of them is flat, the wheel stops moving. Anybody else?
think for me, this class has really helped me see more clearly that prosperity is about sort of the abundant flow or unimpeded flow of energy. And the way it's shown up on many fronts, but the way that it's shown up that's been most liberating for me has been in my relationship. And we had a lot of conflict, and we both really focused on what we were wanting and focused on the ways in which we were different. And we've really shifted our orientation toward focusing on what we can give and what the other person is giving in a manner that's true to who they are. And the result is that we're both giving and giving, and we're both getting everything that we want.
Beautiful.
In the process, yeah.
So you've actually been able to use this class to redefine that the flow, it's not just about one area flow, it's about all of the areas flow. And in particular, in your relationship, you found that there was a change in feeling connected and abundant in your relationship. Yeah? The circulation of love. Yeah. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Going on, sold? Okay. All right. The relationship between prosperity and freedom is very simple, and I think Judy just hit the mark right there. It's just, in order to have freedom, one has to be in the flow of things. And in order to be in the flow of things, there has to be all of these acts, giving, receiving, forgiving, and asking, right? All of those things have to be there. They have to, all those components, the wheel, the entire wheel has to move. Okay, next one. High expectations. Yeah. Okay. The key to living well can be found in your expectations. Your level of expectation is actually your faith in God. When you expect to prosper, you believe that, in spite of all appearances or challenges, you will ultimately live an abundant life. Many times I have been without the funding necessary to do what I wanted to do. However, I've never been poor, and I never will be, because no matter how much money I have at any particular time, I always expect that more is on its way to me. There will always be new resources of money because the infinite is the true unlimited supplier in my life. I expect people to be like me. I expect to be well. I expect every venture I enter into to be prosperous. I expect God to supply my every need. I expect to grow in prosperity and get richer every day I am alive. Creating a prosperity consciousness requires regular attention to what we are expecting from life. As we grow older and receive more of the negative messages of our world, we tend to expect less than more. However, God is still God, and good is still waiting for us to accept. Remember, it is the Father's good pleasure to share the kingdom. Make sure that you are not buying into the world's low expectations. Watch your thinking and keep it centered in possibilities. Today is a new day. Who knows what good might come your way if you keep an open mind and high expectations. So, we're going to do one more little partner exercise, and then we got 2 more to go after this. So grab a partner. Actually, no, we're going to do this as a group. What are you expecting out of life? What are you expecting out of life right now? If I were to say to you, you've been in the class 4 weeks, you've been doing this study now, you've had time to really kind of look at this and analyze it, more time than you've spent in the past maybe. What is it that you expect out of life right now? We're going to have to go to partners because there's too many faces that aren't talking. So find a partner. Find a partner because we're going to play with that, all right? Any partner's fine. guys have about another 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, let's come on back. Thank your partner. All right, we got 2 more to go and then we'll take our break. To your conscious mind, it may not always be obvious that deeply ingrained subconscious beliefs can hold you back from what your heart desires. When your hidden beliefs are in conflict with your conscious thoughts, your results tend to be inconsistent and frustrating. By bringing hidden beliefs to your attention, you can resolve the conflict between the inner and outer levels of thought. But unearthing your hidden beliefs is an interesting prospect because it's not always obvious how to do that. Everyone has to find their preferred method for uncovering hidden beliefs. There is no one-size-fits-all. Here are some suggestions for identifying hidden beliefs related to prosperity. Write down everything you can remember hearing in your family of origin about money. Take each statement one at a time and ask yourself to what degree the phrase has played a part in shaping your prosperity consciousness. Whether the statements are positive or negative, try asking yourself how your life would be different if you hadn't heard or believed each one. Interesting, right? So here we go, uncovering hidden beliefs. So tell me about, is there anything that you had in your family of origin about money and prosperity?
Well, I didn't really have much. My father and my mother both were, they had, I don't know if I can talk about this.
Okay. What did you believe about money growing up? Was it good or bad?
Bad.
Bad?
Bad.
It was bad because why?
Because most of it was very negative.
Okay.
And they covered it up by, putting it was negative to them, but, they grew up being told that everything would be okay, and it wasn't.
Okay. All right. So money had a negative connotation growing up.
Yeah.
Ellen.
I wrote down 3 things. First of all, I was told health is better than wealth. So always take care of your health. And money can't make you happy, but it always pays the bills. And always pay your debts.
Always pay your debts. Okay, good. Anybody else? Yes.
I was born in 1938 during the Depression, and money in my family, it also had a connotation of shame.
Right.
And it's amazing, it stays with you so long when you know better, and yet it was there.
Sure. That pre-programming.
It really was.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? That is a really hard thing. There's a whole generation of people who were raised either in the Depression or by parents who were in the Depression. And because of that, the word depression basically sums up their idea about money. I mean, it really does. There is, a shame associated with it because there were definitely haves and have-nots, and most of the people had not in those times. And so it was a real struggle. So that deeply rooted belief has to, you have to shake, I'll have to say this, you have to shake the hell out of that one, because that one's tough. That one's tough. My mom was raised in the Depression, and one of my, Mom, I'm going to out us, okay? I'm going to out us. Okay. Just turn your hearing aid off. I'll meet you in a minute. No. So my mother was raised in a house that my grandparents were really poor. My grandpa told the story of one year they raised potatoes. He's a sharecropper. My grandpa was a sharecropper. Basically had a parcel of land. In exchange, he'd give some crops to the person who owned the land, and he got to keep part of it himself. So one year they raised potatoes because they wanted to be able to feed the family all winter long. And he went off to work, and they left the house one day, and they came home, and all the potatoes they had put up under the house in the wintertime, the house burned down. So they had a period where there was very, very, very little food for the whole winter because that was their livelihood. So when you're raised in a house like that, it's hard to imagine having a housekeeper. You know what I mean? A housekeeper would be extravagant. Getting your nails done would be extravagant. Going on trips would be extravagant. And so with my mom, a lot of times I was like, Mom, you are financially secure. You're going to have more than enough to take you through your life. Please, get a housekeeper. I know it's hard for you to imagine someone coming in and cleaning the house because you were raised that was money that you would never spend. That is frivolous money being spent. But, get one. And we had to shake my mom up a couple times, like, go get your nails done. Go, you don't have to, self-care things. Have a little fun with this. You've worked your butt off all your whole life to do what you did. Why would you just keep it all and not enjoy it and spend some of it? So that is a consciousness of people that were raised like that. You really have to shake up that tree because it doesn't come natural to do things. The natural inclination is sale racks and coupons. Not you now. Yeah, I know, Mom. We got past that one in a big way. But if you have now hear me out. If you have a sale rack coupon mentality, I understand that. But what is the real spiritual message you send out to the universe? Not enough? I'm worth discounting. I'm not worth Nordstrom's. I go to the rack. And I don't go to Nordstrom's. I go to the rack, right? So I suffer from that. I don't have that consciousness. And then when I go to the rack, I go to the sales rack at Nordstrom's rack, which to me is like a double hit, But it's a consciousness that we're raised with, and it's deeply ingrained. So that is probably one of the biggest things, that one has to get over. If you were raised by parents in that time, or you were of age in that time, it was a really hard period. They called it the Depression, and that's the way we look at money. Yolanda. Here you go, babe. Right here. There you go.
My mother was raised in the Depression, and I remember, how they had to struggle. They made their own soap and all the rest of it. But there was never any lack in the home because she was a Christian Zionist. And so there was always, we had a lovely home, and we had, I didn't lack for anything. We didn't have more than, but we didn't lack for anything. And it was lovely. I then have, when I go to college and get a little bit older in the women's movement, I have a series of very wealthy Jewish girlfriends. And I learned from them, you have to spend money to save money. and you have to have a cleaning lady. And so when I got married to my kid's father, I said, I'm working full time. I stayed home for the first 2 years, but then I was working, and so I could pay for it. But I said, I'm going to have a housekeeper. What do you mean you're going to have a housekeeper? Your mother didn't work,
Right.
And so I got the housekeeper, and when I got a divorce, I didn't miss the man, I missed the housekeeper.
That's pretty brilliant. Yeah, yeah, prioritize. Yeah. I do have a story about that because obviously we raised our daughter in a very well-to-do way. I mean, she basically was a princess. But what was interesting is when she went to college for the first time, she had gone to Xavier High School. She lived in the little bubble that she lived in out here. And she went with her roommates. When the first time she had to go with her roommates, they said, come on, let's go to Chipotle. We'll go to Chipotle and have lunch. And the girl's like, I can't. And she's like, no, we could do homework later. She's like, no, come on, let's go to Chipotle. She says, no, I can't. And so Carly and there were 3 roommates. Carly and the other girl were like tag teaming her. Come on, let's go. She goes, you guys don't get it. I came to college with enough money to do laundry every 3 weeks. I eat in the dorm. My school is paid for. That's all the money I have. I don't have any extra money. And I remember Carly telling me the story, and she started to cry because she's like, Dad, I didn't know, and how would I know? And oh my God, and that opened up her eyes in that moment because princesses lived a pretty good life, But we planned it that way. We wouldn't have had kids any other way. So, yeah, and we kept saying, yeah, one of these days that bubble's going to burst, and you're going to be right there when it happens. And I mean, from that point on, we went up for her birthday. We flew up for her birthday, got a hotel room for her and her friends to hang out and have a cake and everything. We pulled out money to go to the store. Just to go to the store and get snacks, and she like slapped my hand. She's like, don't throw your money around. Like, it's San Francisco. You know how much snacks cost here? I got to give you some money. She's like, just hand it to me. So she actually had a guilt in the other direction, which I can appreciate now. I want her to feel guilty. So that all works out pretty well. Yeah.
I have to have a few moments just to say a few things, okay?
All right.
I just want to say that this baby has come a long ways, right? I do have a housekeeper, but I prefer to have one once a month. He's right, I didn't want to at the beginning, but I like to do my own work. I need to keep fit, so I do that. And you know what? I've changed in the sense that I really have an appreciation for the simple life that I had where I lived. To feel the dust in between my toes when I walked along the road, to ride on a big load of cotton, it was great. To chase and run around the house, a simple little wooden framed house at night with my cousins. As I look back, it was really wonderful. It's when I came north that I started to have a really, really bad feeling because the North won the Civil War, and you were nothing if you came from the South. I would say that was a big factor in how I have felt about myself. But I mean, it's true, I go to Nordstrom's rack, and I might look at the rack of the sale part. I usually don't pay full price for a lot of, but sometimes I'm fine with paying for, it depends on what it is. If I want to do something special for my kids, I do it. I might even give them a house or the money from the house, whatever. So I am not, I just don't want them to get the wrong impression here because this baby has come a long way.
I don't think anybody had the wrong impression, right?
The nails are done. However, I had to take them off because the darn things will ruin my own.
Take the microphone, Mom. Get the hook. Get the hook, quick. Thank you, Mom. Janie.
Well, we were raised with the idea that prosperity came from within. And it came from within that you are worthy, you are deserving, you are unconditionally loved. That's the way my parents raised us. We were so blessed. We had no idea we did not have money because we had unconditional love and we were felt worthy and deserving. And that's how she raised us. And I hope I have been able to do that for my son too. That's a gift.
I think you did. Yeah. The mom-son thing, Chris. We're all with everybody. Oh my God, it's just the big old giant warm fuzzy.
Jane, you just said something so profound for me that I've never thought about in my entire life. Yes, that when you had contact with the North, you felt less than. Because the South lost I can't even imagine. I've never known anyone who's made that comment. Of course, I don't know anyone from the South, but
Yeah, you do. You didn't know
now
it.
I do, and I can't imagine.
Oh, they had a big
what
impact on my
deals with
family.
that.
That had a big impact on my family because they were the dumb
God,
Southerners
I can't even
that moved up north. Yeah. My grandpa moved north to work in the shop because that was what everybody worked in the automobile industry. So he moved up there and then took the rest of the family up later. And no, the stories that my grandpa would tell and grandma and my aunts and uncles, there was a lot of South shaming. And so, and at a programmable age, you know, they immediately became a less than in their neighborhood and in their schools and everything. So that was a real challenge. All right, we're gonna take a break now so that we can come back and wrap up the last two exercises. So enjoy your break. I guess 5 people brought a lot of food. There's a lot of food out there, so enjoy yourselves. All right, we'll see you in 15 minutes. My love streamers, I'll see you in 15. last. You don't give what's left. You give what's where you get your good.
I knew that.
No, but that's you don't give it from what's left. It becomes the most important bill you pay. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for those who brought snacks this morning. All right, we're going to finish up this one section. So, if you were to reframe the events in your life that made you think that way about money and prosperity, what would have been different about your life now? What would you do differently? Well, then why don't you go? The QE2. You're talking about you go on a long, you're around the world cruise. Yeah. So why don't you do that? Okay, anybody else now? What else would have changed outside of my mother not going on a trip that she doesn't really want to go on anyway? Okay, anybody else?
Exactly what was your question? Because I want to make sure. What would you have changed?
Yeah, what would you have changed, and how would your life be now if you didn't carry that pattern with you?
I would have said yes to more things in my life, good things. You know, I remember growing up, we had depression consciousness, and that led to holding on to everything, a resistance to recycling, and that leads to clutter, because you can't throw away that piece of foil. And then it leads to another attitude that says, I don't deserve this. You know, you paycheck in, paycheck out, have to save everything. I don't deserve the manicure, I don't deserve this. So I would have said yes to more things and known that I deserve it. You know, have an attitude of I deserve it. If it's a good thing and someone offers it to you, you deserve it, and the abundance just keeps growing.
Right.
You know, because you're receiving.
Right.
And then you learn to ask.
Right. Good analogy. Bellman, thank you. Anybody else? What would be different? You guys are good. The twins are good. They're locked up. And my guess is they pass it on to Christopher, so I bet Christopher's good too.
For me, no.
Go ahead, put the microphone close up there.
I'm aware now that I'm ready to dream. I don't think I allowed myself to dream. Maybe not from because where I came from, but because I didn't feel worthy of having dreams. I found my happiness in taking care of other people and making sure, just like you,
that their needs were met.
Oh yeah.
But your needs, their wants were met, but your needs were just met, but you didn't do anything beyond that.
I was so ignorant. I didn't know what my needs were, or I wasn't even interested in what my needs was. It wasn't that important.
Wow. Oh, that's a pretty profound statement. So now you found the importance of it. Can you admit right now, can you look at me square in the eye and go, okay, I see where I'm important now and that things are going to change starting now?
You better believe it.
Okay. Your daughter's going to hold you to it. We got some mother-daughter, mother-son things going on in here. Yeah, no, that once you know that you know, and like same with you, Velma, you can't say that anymore. Because now that you know, your answer to the universe is more yeses. You've heard me say it before. No doesn't grow. Right. The word no never grows, has never grown a thing. If you said no, no, I'm not going to go on vacation. No, I'm not going to go here. No, I'm not going to go to dinner. No, I'm not going to go out on a date. No never grows. No dies. No water, no food, no water, no life, right? So no doesn't grow a thing. It's getting into the place where you can say, yes, I want to engage in that. Now, you have to be responsible yeses, but yes.
I guess that you said it too, because I know that I stopped the flow. It's the flow that stopped, but everything has always been there, always. I stopped it. Now I am opening the floodgate.
Good. Hand it back to Janie.
I just wanted to say that I was just sitting here looking at you, and I think, my God, how did you learn all this stuff? I mean, really, truly. I mean, I'm just so proud of you. But I just don't know where you learn. I mean, well, I do. I mean, you've been studying a long time, but you're amazing.
Thank you, Mom. Isn't that funny? I don't know where I learned it either. So it just comes, it just flows. So it's a vessel. I don't practice anything. I don't practice a thing. What's that? Yeah, there's an openness. And I mean, people ask me what I said yesterday. I only remember one quote, and that's because I made everybody put it online, right? The social media thing. But it just flows. So thank you, Mom. Anybody else? What would you do differently now? What are you going to do differently now? Yes, Eric. What are you going to do differently now?
I'm going to have faith that it's possible to sustain success. I sabotaged my success over and over in my life. I've had periods where I was like, things were going great, and that's when I kind of took a sledgehammer to it. And things are going great now, and I am very mindful about those past patterns, and I believe that it's possible to commit to a path of success and sustain it.
Right. You know, there are people that, and you hear people will go, you know, you can't sustain that kind of good too long. Something's going to happen. The next shoe's going to drop. They're always waiting for the shoe to drop, you know, or they're saving for the rainy day, so the rain's going to come. Right? You're not saving to be prudent and fiscally responsible and have fiscal financial security. You call it, I'm saving for a rainy day. You know, when you think about it, remember way long time ago when I was a kid, they used to have the Christmas club where you put money in your bank for Christmas starting in January, you know, and then you would take it out and spend it on Christmas. You know, it's like you had a goal in mind. Why didn't we just continue doing that and not call it Christmas? Right? Why did we wait for the holiday? Why did we just do that there? It was something that we did. It was fiscal and prudent, right? What's that? Yeah, richest man in Babylon. Exactly. All right, let's go on. Are we good with that one? I think we uncovered those beliefs. My thought is creative. Let's move into this one. People think that their only prayerful thoughts are creative. So they gather their greatest ideas and most intense faith and pack them and package them together in prayer, sending it forth into the universe, believing God will make it so. But as soon as they release their prayer, their thinking returns to the habitual negativity and passes through their minds with other 23 hours and 59 minutes of the day. The thing they fail to remember is that all thoughts are creative, not just the ones strung together in prayer. Every thought we think creates our consciousness. Thoughts group together to form beliefs, which draw experiences into our lives. If you want to live a prosperous life, work daily on your thoughts. Spend time reading materials that support your faith. Read affirmations. Meditate on the abundant nature of the universe. Pray. All of these practices work together to create a consciousness of wealth and value. The time you devote to maintaining your consciousness is time well spent. It allows you to avoid a lot of misery and attract a lot of good. So, look on page 142 of your journal. And what did you write on the page across from it?
What you put out into the universe comes back to you?
What's that?
What you put out into the universe comes back to you?
Right, in every thought, not just the special ones. There are people that believe just that the universe only answers prayer. The universe is answering all thought. So you can't say one thing, pray one thing, and then believe another, because you just contradicted your prayer. All right, you just negated, if you would. You negated the prayer, so go back, do it over again. Anybody else want to share what you wrote opposite that page? Ronald.
I think what I wrote down was Muhammad Ali, and he wasn't the most greatest fighter, but how many times he thought it, he felt it, he said it, and then all of a sudden he became it. He was always saying, I am the greatest, until he became the greatest. And that was the best example I ever had.
Yeah, it's a good example. Great example. The greatest of examples. Anybody? No? All right, let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next question. Oh, that's when we enjoyed our break. Now we're going to come back. Let's go back to what we did in the workbook now. So let's visit the workbook for a second. Do you have page 55, Judy? In this one? Yeah. You do have 55? Okay, because I thought that might be the one you were missing. Okay, page 47. Let's start at 47 right there. What are you grateful for right now? What are you grateful for right now? Chris, what are you grateful for? Mobility? Okay, having health and being able to move through the world. That's something to be grateful for today. Anybody else have something they want to share? What are you grateful for right now? Yolanda, call it out.
I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my mind, I'm grateful for my mobility, I'm grateful for my children, I'm grateful for the gorgeous weather, I'm grateful for all the wonderful people in my life, I'm grateful for you, I'm grateful for this teaching. I could just keep going and going and going. And for
You got it down. All right. Anybody else? What are you grateful for right now? Yes.
I'm grateful for Christopher's dog, Sammy. She's a shining example of unconditional love.
All right, Christopher's dog, Sammy, unconditional love. I like that. Thankful for that. Anybody else? Hanging out with something unconditional love. Yes.
I'm grateful for my son.
There you go. Good. Your family. Anybody else? Okay, so go ahead.
I'm grateful my daughter is taking this class with me. It is unbelievable.
Good. Yeah, no, you know what? When your family starts taking these classes together, it does change a lot of things. I mean, you can talk about different stuff.
Joe, I don't have past 49.
All right, that's what we'll fix. All right. What role does gratitude and play in prosperity? We touched on it already. We talked about what you're grateful for grows, right? Whatever you're grateful for, what you condemn shrinks or magnifies depending on what you're doing. So in other words, if you complain about your job, what's going to happen to your job? Somehow it's going to be taken away, right? That's just what happens. If you're constantly worried about something, what's going to happen? Whatever you're worrying about is going to expand, right? Conversely, what I'm grateful for is also going to expand. So if I'm grateful for my loving relationships, if I'm grateful for an animal, if I'm grateful for my mobility and my health and Yolanda's list, if I'm grateful for all of those things will grow. And then one feels richer when one has all of these things going well in their life. When we have that kind of feeling, that's what peace of mind feels like. And when it comes to prosperity, I think most people would say, I want peace of mind. Now, some people in their mind think it's about money and stuff and things. In fact, some people say I have to have so much money in the bank in order for me to feel comfortable. They've attached, a number or a label to what it is. But what it is, what if I've said, you could always trust the universe, and what if you had enough to share and to spare? What if you always said, I always want enough to do what I would like and to share and to spare? Some absolute religious scientists have had the great debate. It's like, do religious scientists believe in life insurance and health insurance and car insurance and home insurance? And there were the absolutists would say, well, no, because if you bought the insurance, you're anticipating a problem. But then the rest of us are going, no. That's that spiritual discernment in doing the right thing to protect everything that you want to continue to go in your flow. It's not that you're anticipating an accident. You're not anticipating it. It's just the prudent thing that we do. Does that make sense? When I pay my car insurance bill, I don't say and go, oh, this is just in case I have an accident. No, I'm like, you know what? I'm covered. Not in case I have an accident. I'm covered. I'm good. I thank you, God, that I can, and I write thank you, God, on the check, that I can pay that bill. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, every time. So that's what happens. Whatever we give thanks for grows. So consider this. You've completed 7 pages of reflection each week. We're not going to do this because I want to move into forgiveness because that's going to take the lion's share of this particular class. We don't have the rest of the journal yet, and I'm truly trying to work on it. But when I do get the journals in, I want to let you know so that you guys can go back and actually do this. This is supposed to be a 1-year process. And for those of you who want to go on a journey, Living the Science of Mind, it's a textbook in the bookstore. It's 365 separate chapters. They're short, and they're designed to do a chapter a day, living the science of mind, reading one chapter each day, and calling that a spiritual practice. All right? So I want to go back. Let me go back and rewind this thing real quick. I got to just rewind this thing to the place that has forgiveness attached to it. Go ahead and I gave you a forgiveness handout, and we're going to march through that a little bit. So when we talked about forgiveness this week, it's cold in here now, isn't it? Yeah. See what happens? We set the temperature. I get the fan on. Now we're cold. Okay, let's turn that off. Let's try this. All right, forgiveness follow-up. When you were doing your forgiveness work this week, when you were allowing yourself to be taken out of the prison that you put yourself in, what issues popped up for you this week? Did anything pop up that really you felt a lot of resistance to? Did you do it or did you tank it because you didn't want to address it?
I've already addressed it through this class earlier, thanks to you.
Okay, so you already went through and you've already addressed it. Anybody else have any hang-ups on forgiveness this week? Yes.
I do. I have a long-standing problem with my youngest sister, who has done a lot of things. She's kind of moved away from the family and created a situation where none of us could deal with her. And now her daughter is becoming friends with my daughter, and I feel that I should close the gap with my sister. But there's a lot of family stuff in there.
We have, in family relationships where you have separation from another family member, you have to be really careful about that concept of triangulation. Okay? Getting in the way of what's natural for them and somewhat unnatural for you. So let me tell you a little story about that. There's a book called The Adoption Triangle, and we read it before we adopted Carly. And I always knew, intuitively, that there would come a point in time when Carly would need to reach out to her birth family. And, we found the biological father on Facebook, believe it or not, and we connected through Facebook and actually had a meeting with him. Now, several of my family members, especially Trey's family, were very fearful about us having a meeting with the biological family because they thought in some way, shape, or form that would take something away from us. And my philosophy was, you know what? That isn't about me. That's about her and her relationship with this person. I don't need to interject myself into that. I need to let that just be what it is. So whether it's an adoption or whatever that is, sometimes if they're developing a relationship, that's not necessarily an invitation for you to join in. That's saying, I respect the two of you having this relationship together, and if it's right, if it feels right, not pushed or pressured, if it feels organic in nature, then you let it happen. You don't force it to happen. So we can get into a place where that triangulation, we could have stopped the triangle, but there's really an important part of that triangle for other people to experience, her biological family or your sister experiencing it with your daughter, right? Experiencing that. That's part of their journey. And I have to separate what is my journey and what is her journey. And just because I'm related, just because she's my daughter, doesn't necessarily mean I have an invitation to journey into what she's doing in that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we have to be careful that, we feel like when it's family, we always feel like family falls under a separate category of relationships. Have you ever noticed that? We put up with more stuff from family than we would normally with other people. We give family members a lot more passes than we normally would give other people. We get involved in a relationship when they're, like Andrea was sharing, there's something going on between two members of the family, and you feel the need to get involved in it. Anybody ever had that happen to them? So when that happens, remember that you're not part of, that's not part of your journey unless you were invited in. And usually an invitation is not by one person, but by both. Does that make sense? Now, When we have issues with family, we have to be able to feel comfortable to be honest without hurting someone. We have to be able to be, there has to be enough trust there to not, damage someone over the things that you say. So we have to make sure in those relationships, especially family relationships, that forgiveness is actually, it comes easier with them than anyone else. Because what we don't want to do is feel like we're imprisoned by our family. Because then you start resenting your family. Does that make sense? Let's join this. I want to go into this handout that I just gave you earlier. How is it possible to really forgive and forget? If you really, I like this. If you really want to forgive, second paragraph, there is a big difference between letting something go and letting something be. A friend jokingly pointed out that he had lost his keys. The harder he tries to find them, the more they stay lost. He reports that if he usually, when he stops looking and lets that be, he ends up finding the keys again. If you really want to forgive, you're probably like most people in that you'll do better at it with support. You'll do well if you have a trusted friend or professional who can listen to you. Letting things be is much easier to accomplish when you and I have someone to listen to us. In my opinion, it's best for me to share my trouble with someone who isn't so close that their love for me gets in the way of their objectivity. In this regard, forgiveness work is similar to finding your lost keys, because forcing the matter will make you feel more frustrated, not less. Let it be. Just let it be. If you want to forgive and forget, if you really want to forget, you're going to have to give yourself something more interesting and more satisfying than whatever happened. This will be easier to accomplish once you understand the difference between letting something be and letting something go. You're not expected to pretend that nothing happened. No, just the opposite. You're fully aware of what happened. You lost a part of you, and you're going to give yourself to something more interesting anyway, because you know that lost part still exists. You're going to turn your attention in a more constructive and more powerful direction. Have you heard the phrase, "I forgot myself in it"? It describes those moments when a person is so wrapped up in a project that they forget time and space and family and friends. It may take little research and determination to identify something you can forget yourself in, but if you're successful, you'll be adding one more healthy step towards letting things be. When you do have engaging, creative, and interesting activities, you will experience moments of forgetfulness of what happened. This is not the same as denial. Like finding your keys, when your mind touches on the memory of what happened, you will likely remember the details. Remember when you find your lost keys, you go, "Oh yeah, that's where I put them." Remember? How possible is it to really forgive and forget depends on how you define forgive and forget. If your expectations are unrealistic, you may find it difficult to do either. If you treat yourself respectfully and go about the process mindfully, you may very well have an experience of both forgetfulness and forgiveness. So, I like what he said. You like that? The whole page is real. This is good stuff. So look on the page that's the smallest, that has the smallest print on it. We'll go through the note one in a minute, but maybe this list of what forgiveness is not can be helpful. Forgiveness is not condoning unkindness. Forgiveness is not forgetting that something painful happened. Forgiveness is not excusing poor behavior. Forgiveness does not have to be Forgiveness does not have to be an otherworldly or religious experience. Forgiveness is not denying or minimizing your hurt. Forgiveness does not mean reconciling with the offender. Forgiveness does not mean you have to give up feelings. What is forgiveness? It is a state of freedom. It is relieving yourself of the burden of the past. It is embracing the prospect of being a whole person again. It is giving the person you forgive, even yourself, the freedom to live in peace and the chance to also be a whole person again. So that's what forgiveness is. Many times we look at what forgiveness isn't versus what forgiveness is. So the journey of forgiveness, and keep in mind, the journey of forgiveness is never just a one-time event. You can try to make it that way, but eventually something may pop up again. And when it pops up again, you're thinking, "Oh, I thought I was over this," right? And you just have, instead of beating yourself, just go back to something like this. lose yourself in something else. You know how they say take your mind off of it? Well, lose yourself in something else and just let it be. Let that person be. I've always talked about giving people safe passage in and safe passage out of your life. You don't have to throw rocks at people as they leave your life, even if they've hurt you. Just give them safe passage out, because for your own sanity, you're going to not want to have the responsibility of, just keeping that hate and the distrust and all those feelings. That's tension. That's that fist that's grasped tight. That doesn't love. That doesn't love it. That one feels angry. So, but when you give safe passage, you're like, okay, it's okay. Let it be. And you know what it's like? You know, it's like when you even in forgiveness, there's a component of forgiveness and grief that are very similar in nature. You can sometimes feel like you're over something and then it pops up again, right? And also in forgiveness, a lot of times you have to occupy yourself. In grief, sometimes we occupy ourselves by doing something else, and we forget to remember what our loss for a certain amount of time, and then the loss appears again, right? But same thing with forgiveness. When you get occupied doing other things, you don't forget about it. But as soon as you stop doing that other thing, then it comes back up and you're like, okay, it's still spinning over here. So they're very similar in nature like that. So which means it's going to be a process, an ongoing process, one that one just cannot just stop doing. All right? Excuse me. Why do you need to forgive and how to do it? Understanding forgiveness and using it in your life to move forward with relationships and career is a daunting task when you're feeling betrayed and hurt. It is well known that exercise is a powerful antidote to depression. However, try exercising when you're depressed. It's not that easy. Similarly, it's pretty well known that forgiveness is good for you and releases pent-up creative energy. However, doing the work to forgive is not easy, even when you understand why you need to forgive. Here are some points to keep in mind when thinking about how to forgive. Be compassionate with yourself. Sometimes what stops people from forgiving is the pressure to do so in the first place. Have compassion with yourself when you are having difficulty forgiving. In many faith traditions, there is a pressure to forgive, and who cannot forgive often think they have failed. In reality, it may not be the time for you to forgive, and if you force yourself to do something that you're not ready to do, you may be adding to the problem and creating another layer of resentment. Simply being willing to think about forgiveness may be your first step, and it may be enough until you arrive at clarity about what forgiveness is and what it is not. Try not to put a schedule on your forgiveness. Be clear about what forgiveness is and what it's not. Sometimes what stops people from forgiving is the idea that they will be condoning the behavior that hurt them. You may have to remind yourself frequently that to forgive is not the same as saying it's okay that you did that. Try seeing this perspective. You're releasing the hurt feelings for your own sake, for the sake of your children and loved ones, because when you do release them, more of your joy and creativity can be present. Besides, living with unforgiveness ends up being more stressful and punishing to ourselves than the one who offended us. Have healthy boundaries. Sometimes what stops people from forgiving is the thought that the person they are forgiving will do what they did all over again. That could be so. Try this perspective. Forgiveness does not mean letting people walk all over you. Instead, it is possible to forgive someone and kindly choose not to hang out with them again. That may take great strength to do, because sometimes we very much want to hang out with them and we believe they will change because we have forgiven them. Make sense? Forgetting about remorse and revenge. Sometimes what stops people from forgiving is a desire to get even or hope that the person being forgiven will show some remorse. Sometimes this is simply impossible because the person may have passed away or the grudge may be held against something like life itself. Revenge is not always possible and it is not always advisable. Getting revenge gives a mild relief but frequently results in a feeling of guilt for having stooped to the very kind of actions that hurt. I hope these ideas will contribute to your willingness to consider forgiveness on a pathway to freedom. The sheer difficulty of doing the work lessens as we educate ourselves about why it is we should forgive and how to do it. So this was written by my friend Edward. Isn't he great? I love him. I'm about to spend 2 weeks with him. So when you hear these things, and you read these things, and I guess all I want to do in this class today is make sure that there is an opening in your mind and a door that is being prepared to be opened by you, not me, but by you, to practice forgiveness. My suggestion to you is make a list of people you need to forgive. People that you feel have harmed you in any way. And this is not about reaching out to them and talking to them, but it's about reading these few pages and going through them and kind of keeping that person in mind as you go through each one of their names as you read this. Does that make sense? It's like read a few sentences and look at your list of people, read a few sentences, look at your list of people. And, you know, I went as far as I made my list, of people that I'm working on forgiveness. And as I read something that meant something, I would circle their name, right? So it's like, okay, I could apply that to this person. Okay, I can apply it to this person. Okay, I can apply this sentence to that person. And it ended up that I had everybody under a circle. Everyone's name was eventually circled. It took me an hour and a half to circle them. I had to read several different ideas, but eventually they were all circled. What that means to me is that every one of those has a possibility of forgiveness. And so when I looked at that, I thought, why would I be held hostage by any one of these things if the answer is right in front of me? So it was a worthwhile exercise to do. I know that sounds max of homework, but it will help you if you have issues around forgiveness. Does that make sense? Any questions? Hang on, let me give you the microphone. Go ahead.
This paragraph, the next to the last, forget about remorse and revenge. I have had issues with forgiveness, which I work with on every day, but I have never once ever let my mind go to revenge. And I can't imagine someone letting their mind go there.
Oh, if you've
And
ever
so
walked
this-
in,
this
if a
is-
husband walked in, or a wife walked in on her husband with another man and women in bed. Hey, it's Palm Springs, could happen. Yeah, no,
Yeah?
want to chop it off. Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. No, there are people that the revenge is not, let's just call it, there has to be a get even factor. And so people will lawyer up in the situations like, they'll do a lot of different things to get even. Yeah, no, but some people, fortunately you haven't been in a situation like that where the people have said, oh my God, or a business partner has taken all the money and run, and you're like, so you're out to seek revenge, you're out to get their pound of flesh, so to speak. You know, so there are situations where people do have that, absolutely. Yeah. Did you see Will and Grace, the new Will and Grace, where Grace wants to get the last word? And then the episode, she's walking out the door with Leo, and she says, and I get the last word, and close the door. And it was all just about her getting the last word. She had to have the last word. But it was really comical to watch because, there are people that is like, no, my ego will only be satisfied if I have the last word. It's more important for me to be right than be loving. That's a really important litmus test. Is it important for me to be right or important to be loving?
Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Hang on, baby. Hang on. Jill needs to hear you.
Hi, Jill. Judy, the other twin.
And she's not just Jill. She's not the only one watching. We have several people watching.
Dr. Wayne Dyer, I have, I guess, every CD or cassette tape even that he's ever had, and I've read most of the books, but I like the tapes at night. And one of my favorite things that he always said is when you have a choice to be right or kind, always be kind.
Yeah.
Just that one sentence is so important if we could apply that.
Yeah. It's funny how people get entrenched. Someone throws down the gauntlet doesn't necessarily mean you have to pick it up. It takes two to tango. You can't tango by yourself, or you look silly. But it takes two people to engage in those acts. So if you're the one who throws down the gauntlet, don't be surprised if someone picks it up. And if someone throws it down in front of you, you have to learn safe passage or pick it up and get ready for the fight. These are your choices that you're going to make. Hang on.
Thank you. I'm really grateful for this class and realize we can master to create the circulation, the abundant and prosperous. And in terms of the order of the circulation, I discussed with Gay, and I'm thinking just like give the unconditional love to the people, continue, and receiving unconditional love, and sometimes conditional love, and sometimes garbage or trash from others too.
Right.
And then we forgive the one who threw the garbage or trash, and also forgive us of self that we receive them because we allow ourselves to
Exactly.
receive it. And also ask for more good with faith and confidence, and grateful to what we have and what we're going to have. That's what I learned from this session. But one thing I read, Buddha once was sitting under the tree. One of the disciples came over, used very cursing words, every bad words to Buddha. And Buddha was smiling, keep smiling. And another disciple came over and said, why you keep smiling? Someone was so bad to you. And the Buddha said, when someone gives you a gift, you receive it, you have it, you keep it. But someone gives a shit, you don't take it. Who will have it? So the one who gave you the shit, he keeps that shit.
And so says Buddha. I love that. You don't have to take it. I have been exercising a lot of get up and walk out scenarios. Just get up and walk out because I don't want to participate in I got it, Yolanda. I don't want to participate in that exchange, because I have enough self-worth and value and self-esteem to go, just walk out. Just don't sit at this restaurant anymore. Just say, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to go home. Yeah. I love it.
I have a sort of really interesting experience, and it goes back like 35 years. And my kid's father and his political ally had this woman at the table. We were in Chinatown in LA or something, having food or drink. And, they're all over her, and, oh, isn't she fabulous, fabulous, fabulous? And she was not a nice person. And so she did tea reading, and she did a reading for me, predicting that I was going to meet some horrible thing within the next couple of weeks, like, something really bad. I rejected it. I sent it right back. I didn't receive it. I do this a lot. I didn't receive it. And 2 weeks later, she was murdered in her apartment.
Oh, my.
Yeah, so we have to be careful, good and bad. This is very wise. Buddha's very wise, because we don't have to receive things that are sent to us that, just are not kind and loving and good. So it's important to be able to discern and not receive things that we don't want.
And let's be grateful for all that we have then. Yeah?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's
So joining in the dance. So let's wrap this up. The whole course was about joining in the dance and knowing the laws of circulation and how they work, knowing the different components and how every spoke of the wheel is important, that every one of them has to be in balance, that the giving and the receiving, the asking, all of those things all have to be part of the wheel that turns. So my hope for you that is the past 5 weeks, over the past 5 weeks, that you've gained some more insight on what that needs to become in your life, how you want and desire these changes, and that it's not just a 5-week shot that you're going to go home and then put all this stuff on a shelf and forget about it. It's about actually taking the stuff, keeping it fully present, and keep it going for yourself so that you can continue to move into those expressions of love and of joy and peace and prosperity. Does that make sense? All right. So are there any more questions? Because that officially ends the course. We're actually done. Yay! Right? So the next course I think is going to be, I think we're going to do Beyond Limits next. So if you had it, come back again. It'll be a good expression, a good experience, because you're not the same person that did it before. Get into the habit of going to classes every week. You will be really glad that you have a habit of going to classes. It's just like Sunday, but Sundays you get a 25-minute lesson. Here you get 2 hours and some every single time. It actually means a lot more. It's in January, yeah. I'll start that back up in January. We'll have a little bit of break in February, but We're going to do that and then follow it up again with self-mastery. So those 2 classes back to back will take us well into the end of May. But May's coming either way. The difference is that you can be a different person in May than you are today. All right? So how many, before I go, I need to do this. How many of you have not received this packet in the mail? I got it yesterday. Anybody not received this? Have you all gotten this? Everybody got this? If you didn't, raise your hand, and I'll give it to you. Because it's all about, you didn't get one, Chris? All right. Here. Nope. And everyone else got one of these, right? This is about part of what you learn, giving and receiving. And this is a time for us as we're getting ready to launch into our membership, our giving campaign, whatever we're calling it. I don't remember what they're calling it anymore. It's not my job. My job is just to tell you, what's that? Reignite. Yes, to reignite your commitment. So this is an opportunity for you to look at that as well, because giving where you get spiritually fed is really important. We talked about that in the class, and I hope that that's what happened the last 5 weeks. We didn't charge tuition on this class, and that's because we wanted you to be able to have something to take, and so you could learn these tools yourself and then apply them in your life. All right? So let's pray our way out, and everybody, I had a fantastic class. You guys were great. Absolutely great. All right, so let's close our eyes, take a deep breath in. And this is what I know. I know that there is one divine intelligence, one perfect love. And each one of us are an expression of that perfect love. It moves in, as, and through us at all times. And so I speak my word for all those who have joined us on the love stream and all those who are in this classroom right now. And we just know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we believe, it is written in our belief book right now that things have already changed. That the things that we've been doing over the past month now move into a greater expression into our lives, and they unfold in ways of prosperity and abundance in every area of our life, in our relationships, in our finances, in our health, in our creativity, in our work, and abundance in our spiritual journey and our spiritual awakening. So knowing that something wonderful indeed happened in the consciousness of all those who heard these words and who studied what we've studied and who wrote what you wrote, I simply know that only good comes from all things, and that any resistance we've ever had is now replaced with the joy of allowing ourselves to move into the flow of good, and we know how to enter into that flow, and we know that doing that allows every area of our life to expand and become more happier and healthier and joyful, more peaceful and calming, more balanced and more orderly. For that we give great thanks, and for this opportunity as a spiritual community to gather here safely in this room, for us to be able to do that and to be able to enjoy this facility and those people who work behind the scenes to make the class possible and photocopying and make sure that the snacks are out and the coffee. We give great thanks for all those who behind the scenes have created this for us. We give great thanks for all of you who brought nourishment every week for us to eat during our snack time so that we can continue to thrive and our bodies can do what's necessary to keep us alive, alert, awake, and enthusiastic about life. And so we say, bless you, beloved presence. Bless everyone in this room. I give great thanks for all of these things and so much more. We have so much to be grateful for, and this center is number one on my list. And doing what we do here is number one because I just know that we are changing lives one heart at a time. Just one. And I know that lives have changed in this room. Forever grateful for that. I let it be so. Together we say. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you on Sunday. I think it starts next week. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to my love streamers. Bye, everybody.